invite all who would care to stand and join us in the recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It is now 7:29. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated, please. I'd like to explain for the record, we're starting at approximately 7:29 this evening. We had technical difficulties, and under the COVID-19 protocols, this meeting had to be available to the public by live stream on our internet, on our website. So that's why we're starting a little late here this evening at 7:29. Roll call, please.
Mr. Robb. Here. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Gates.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here. Entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Roberts.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Just for the record, there's a medical situation in the Roberts family that necessitates the member's absences.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
That motion to excuse passes. I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from the May 4th, 2020 meeting.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Robb and a second by Mr. Gates to dispense with the reading of the journal from May 4th, 2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
That motion passes. Now comes the time for public comment. I do not have any public comment that came to City Hall on my behalf. Do you have any, Mr. Crum?
No, I did not.
Okay, so we do not have any public comment this evening. Reports from standing and special committees. The Finance and Personnel Committee met. Councilman Gates.
Mayor, thank you. The committee met last Wednesday afternoon. Members will grab their packets. We'll start on the back page. Do things a little different because we have some very good news. The last page is a summary of income tax collections. The top part is cumulative for the year. The bottom part is monthly. Let's take a look at the monthly and look at the April collections for 2020. We had $438,000 collected. Last year it was $399,000. The quote I wrote down from the finance director, quote, "I'm shocked," unquote. And I was quite surprised to see that. It's hard to say. Of course, the filing deadline has been extended to July 15th, but it may be that, at least for individuals and what have you, they had their taxes prepared and, might as well file them and get it out of the way. But no one would have expected, that huge increase in light of the situation. If you go up to the top half, you can see that the numbers, the cumulative numbers for 2019 and 2020 are pretty similar. What is that, about $9,000 difference. But again, that's the very good news on the finance report is the income tax. Let's return to the front page. We'll go through some highlights there. Of course, April, that's 1/3 of the year. If you look down at the very bottom line, you can see that the estimated, or the income, we received 33% of our estimated income for the year, so that's spot on. And expenditures are at, is that 28 or 29%? 28%, so a little bit under the, a third of the year. Let's go up to the general fund. We can see that the general fund continues to be in good shape. We had in cash a little over $1 million as of the end of April, $195,000 in encumbrances, and free and clear $878,000. We do have two, to say it's bad news is an exaggeration. We have two blemishes here on this report. We want to take a look at line 220, the income tax fund, and 500, the water. If you look at the column that's labeled less encumbrance, the fund balance, you see those are in the negative. The deputy finance director explained why that is that some expenditures were encumbered for the entire year, and that put, then when you take the cash balance minus the encumbrances, it puts it in the negative. That's an explanation, that's certainly a plausible explanation. But it's this member's understanding that no fund may ever be in a negative balance at any time during the year. Now, there was some talk we could go, possibly go back and reduce that encumbrance and put that then into the those funds at either at zero or into the black. Chose not to do that. I expressed my concern at the meeting. I have every confidence the finance director is going from here on out to make sure that that doesn't happen. We do have some concerns about the water and sewer, but I'm going to defer that to Mr. Martin when he does the utilities and streets report. But again, looking at the combined financial statement, that is really in very good shape. One thing we did mention, I've got a note there, is gasoline tax, possibly off by 15 to 20% for the year. Gasoline tax, I believe, is 2 months in arrears. 2 months in arrears, Mr. Geis has confirmed. And so, March, we went halfway through March, things hit, so there'll still be a while to see, and I'm sure that the finance department is, looking for those checks when they come in, to see how those are going to trend. But that's what we're looking at is gas tax off 15 to 20%. We'll continue to the next page. And this is where we can see a comparison. The total budget. I'm just going to look at the 2020 figures. 10.1 million in revenues, 9.8 in expenditures, so that's good. Looking at the general fund, again, 1.7 in revenues, 1.6 in expenditures, that's good. Going down to general fund revenues, we see the one county grants and aids, that's down $42,000, and that has to do with the reimbursement for the municipal court. The county and Valley done some research and found that they are only obligated to reimburse, in this case, the city of Mansfield, the city of Shelby, for particular things, not everything for which we've been billing over the years. 101 expenditures and wages, you can see they are up 12%. No real explanation for that. So we'll see how that continues throughout the year. Going down to income tax, we can see that the individual income tax collections are down 22%. Now, this may well be where the deadline was moved, and I've spent enough Aprils walking through the lobby of City Hall and seeing people standing in line to file their taxes. Obviously, they weren't there this year, so I don't know if mail is up this year. Whether they're mailing them in. My guess is probably not, because if you could mail them in, why would you stand in line? With 30 of your nearest best friends paying their taxes. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Business tax, up 15%. My marginal note is wow, but we'll see the impact for that probably next year. It's been this member's experience over the decades that when there's an economic downturn, we get whacked in income tax, not that year of the downturn, but the next year. So, we'll see, which is another good reason to maintain, particularly in the general fund, a lot of fiscal responsibility, because if we do get whacked next year, we're going to need a good balance starting in January to offset that impact. The withholding is up almost 11%. Again, that's the first quarter, January, February, March. So, when the next quarter comes in July, we'll know what the impact is. And it's I would bet dollars to donuts, it's not going to be up 11%. Next page, we have the comparison of the three utilities. And I won't add any more. Mr. Mark can bring that back news. Finally, that page, the refunds, they're down $11,000, $12,000, but one never knows. That's always just a big guesstimate as to what those are going to be. Next page, the cash investment reconciliation statement. We continued our discussion regarding the fees the banks charge versus the interest that we get from them. I'm pleased to announce the Finance Department did jawbone the banks. I'm not sure it's been to any avail at this point. The Deputy Finance Director reported that PNC's fees are up a lot, and the U.S. Bank's fees are up too. We're fortunate in this town that we have a lot of banks, financial institutions. You can see we have money since Avista, PNC, Richland, and U.S. Bank. We have two banks in town with which we could do business that we aren't presently, Mechanics and First Federal Savings Bank. So, it pays to shop around. It was pointed out that it's not an easy thing to move city money. It's not like I get my nose bent out of shape at some place and I go in and cash out my money and they give me the cashier's check and I drive across town and open up an account. Boom, boom. It doesn't work that way because of and rightly so, the laws that protect deposits of public monies. But, and of course, there's always the probability, it's like credit cards, 0% interest rate, for 6 months. And the 6 months are over and you get whacked with 25% interest rate. It could well be, I'm not going to point your fingers, that a financial institution say, we want your money, yeah, we'll cut the fees, da-da-da-da-da, and in a year's time we get whacked again. So, we get a little bit of benefit and then we're right back to where we were. So, anyhow, but I do appreciate the fact that the Finance Department is jawboning and at least expressing our dissatisfaction with the fees. The next little sheet has to do with the Sutter Roush Fund, and I've already talked about the income tax collection. So, Mayor, that's my report. If either Mr. Barker or Mr. Crum have anything to add, by all means, they certainly should.
Mr. Crum.
I will say that we did receive the gas tax on Friday for March. It was surprisingly close to, it was down, but it wasn't down that much. So, once again, logic is interesting. So we'll see what next month's gas tax is.
Are there any further comments or questions from Mr. Gates in regard to his report?
Mayor, I move that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated April 30th, 2020, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city's website.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the combined financial statement investment reconciliation statement, both dated April 30th, 2020, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Gates.
My pleasure, Mayor.
Move forward then to, actually, the safety committee did not meet.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry, I turned this over and I saw my notes from the personnel half.
Oh, okay.
If
Yeah,
I,
go ahead.
if I may.
Sure.
Um, Mayor, you reported to the committee that the workforce in the city has stayed healthy. And particularly at fire and EMS, the morale is good there, which is very fine. The service department, which did have staggered work schedules, is now back to full force with protocols in place. There will be a soft opening at City Hall with the lobby limited to people who come in. I've noticed already that the drive-through is open at the utility office, and I'm sure too they're looking at the lobby with limitations. A concern about vacations. If employees can't use vacations, how might that be rolled over at the end of the year? Evidently, the contracts do have some limitation as to how much can be rolled over. And that might be more particularly concerned in the police department. My guess then, and it still is when we get toward Labor Day and the possibility of rolling over in amounts greater than what the contract allows, that you in your capacity as safety service director will be getting calls from unions saying, can we take a look at that? And obviously that would make sense to do that in light of what we're all going through. So my apologies for missing that, but there are my notes. So that does conclude my report.
Okay, fine, thank you. Appreciate you picking that up. All righty. So, Safety Committee did not meet. We're ready then for Councilman Martin and the Utilities and Streets Committee report.
Yes, the Utilities and Streets Committee did meet, and we discussed quite a bit, so I'll be going through this quick pace as I possibly can. At the light plant properties, first thing we discussed, the outbuilding demolition. Richland Engineering will be preparing bid specifications for the demolition of the following buildings: machine shop, beer dock, cold storage area, and there's just a cold ice plant. An on-site visit was held in early February. Another visit is being scheduled to renew and finalize the scope of work. Upon receiving the bids, legislation will be prepared for council to authorize the mayor to advertise for the demolition of those buildings. We're also looking at diesel storage tank removal. Plans are in motion to remove the 10,000-gallon diesel fuel storage tank. The tank will need to be internally cleaned of any water and sediment, and upon cleaning of the tank will be sold. Concrete containment wall and fence will be removed. The project funding for that is going to come out of the 602 fund, the Light Debt Reserve Fund. $200,000 has been appropriated for this year's work for the demolition at that property. Our utility projects are starting back up. The GIS project was placed on hold right before the data points were being taken. Kickoff meeting was held on March 4th, and the utility located the utility locates on different utilities started in Ward 1 during the week of March 9th. The project was put on hold, obviously, the week of March 16th. The project is set to resume the week of May 18th. City utility crews are out marking city-owned underground utilities, water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. And Ward 1 next week, which would be this week. Northwest area of the city, blues for water, green sanitary sewer, white for storm sewer. So if you see those markings in Ward 1, that's what's going on. A representative from Great Lakes Community Action Partnership will follow the city crews in Ward 1, and they would log the data points for the city-owned underground utilities. Crews will be working through the wards in numerical order. Project is scheduled to take approximately 15 to 18 months to complete, and the updates will be posted on the city website. One utility project was put on hold, and that's water meters. So our water meter change-out program was placed on hold in mid-March due to COVID, and the project is tentatively scheduled to start back up in July. It was scheduled for completion this year. However, we're going to postpone the water meter bid until next year. We do need to order 650 meters at a cost of around $120,000 to complete the project. And this will move the project completion date to the end of fiscal year 2021 as opposed to the end of this year. If finances are in order in Q3 or Q4, we are tentatively planning to purchase approximately 250 of those 650 meters to get a jump start. But the next bid will be probably Q2 of 2021. For that, traffic signals. The Traffic Commission met on March 16th. 2 traffic signals were discussed, the signal at Mansfield and Wareham and the signal at North Gamble and West State Street. A traffic study conducted by the Richland County Regional Planning Commission for the said signals was provided to the Traffic Commission. Studies indicated both signals were not warranted by the Traffic Council. Now, one study was conducted during non-school days, one study was conducted during school days. The Commission voted unanimously as follows. Mansfield Avenue and Wareham Road, we're going to remove the cantilever poles and traffic signals, install a stop sign with a cross traffic does not stop placard under the sign on Wareham Road. That work has been completed. North Gamble and West State Street, we're going to place the traffic signal on flash mode. Yellow flash is for north and southbound traffic on Gamble Street, red flash for east and westbound traffic on State Street, and also installing stop signs with cross traffic does not stop placards under the signs on State Street. That work has also been completed. All right, the Electric and Communications Department. The Electric Department Superintendent has been inquiring about the replacement and purchase of a new bucket truck. The department is down a bucket truck. We recently advertised to sell the 1993 GMC bucket truck. Many of you will remember that. The truck ordered this year is normally delivered and purchased the following year. The funds of the truck would need to be certified this year by the finance director. Those are going to come out of the 600 DCP 588 fund. That's already been appropriated in the fiscal year 2020 electric budget. Payment for the truck would be made in fiscal year 2021, and the cost for that specified bucket truck would be approximately $220,000. Obviously, these aren't on the lot, they have to be special orders. The state of Ohio does have a procurement available for bucket trucks, and we are going to be moving forward with that purchase and project. All right. Shelby Stimulus and Stabilization Package. The financials for that 50% reduction of the electric fuel and purchase power adjustment for the new billing period is in. The collective savings to electric customers was approximately $310,000. The West Main Street Sanitary Sewer Project. The city, dealing with the city's financial contribution. The city appropriated funds for the project of $150,000. The current encumbered funds for this project is $165,000. Additional city funds are being sought for the project to assist with the grant funding quality, as was discussed in the appropriations meeting in March. Grant money is being provided by the Ohio EPA Water Pollution Control Loan Fund to financially assist households that qualify. The grant per household is income-based and was awarded on a percentage basis. This is the breakdown of the grant percentages for the 24 households affected. 5 households received the 100% grant, 6 households received the 85% grant, 2 households received 50% grant, and 11 households received 0% from that grant. To assist with making the funding equitable for all of the households, the administration has agreed to entertain the thought to increase the funding for the households receiving either 0 or 50% to the 85% mark, meaning all households will have a financial contribution of at least 85% of their cost to install their sewer laterals. And obviously, households receiving the grant for 100% will remain at 100%. The additional financial contribution will vary by household due to the length of the sewer lateral. Additional project cost for the city would be approximately $90,000, and that would put the total all-in contribution for the city around $255,000. Additional funding would be appropriated from the Sewer Improvement Fund, which is Fund 402. The assessment per household would need to be adjusted to reflect the cost of the sanitary sewer main minus the city's all-in contribution. The additional contribution from the Sewer Improvement Fund is financially feasible, and the fund balance as of 5/8/2020 was around $338,000. However, out of that, there are still numerous projects that is scheduled to come out of that, including the East Main Street sanitary sewer replacement, the GIS study, the water meters, and engineering for the downtown enhancement project. So that it is financially feasible, but any more than that 85% mark would put a little bit of a strain there. All right, street paving. Street paving for this list has been revised. Obviously, the revision is due to the lost revenue from the gas tax based off of our projections. And so we are anticipating monthly gas tax revenue of around $20,000 or less over the next several months, and slowly working its way back up to the $40,000 per month. And as the finance director said, that that may be a little better than that what we're anticipating, but we're projecting based off of that. The revised list and projected budgetary cost figures are as follows. Street paving bid project will be Broadway Street from the CSX tracks to Main Street, $325,000. Water Street, alternative street for the bid, $26,000, and mobilization and bond will be $25,000. And legislation is forthcoming at the June 1st council meeting. Street paving projects outside of the bid: East Main Street is the ODOT project, $35,000. London West Road is the county project of $16,380. Both of those projects we were informed of in Q1 of this year, so they weren't a part of our initial plan because we didn't know that we needed to plan for those amounts, but we did. Then Close Street City project, we're waiting on the budgetary cost for that. It's going to be estimated to be between $5,000 and $10,000. And then of course the alleys are as a city project is approximately $50,000 for that. Project costs will be covered from the available funds of 353 streets, alleys, basins, 210 street sales tax, and 200 streets. We're also checking to see if asphalt prices, try to say that 3 times fast, or don't, are down. Asphalt usually follows oil prices, so we will see. One can only hope that it'll be a little cheaper for us to do that, and of course then that means we can add more streets. All right, water and wastewater financial concerns. The water and wastewater fund balances are very concerning. Both fund balances are down considerably from the start of the year. Water is down 16%, wastewater down approximately 21%. One of the factors for the lost revenue is the reduction in water sales. This is direct outfalls of the economy, and it slowed down due to COVID. And even before then, we were looking at water consumption and billing being down. So for example, I'm not going to go through all these, but as an example, let's go through for January through April of 2019, our consumption was 15.5 million, and we billed 374,000. Our consumption January through April of this year was down over 3 million, so it's only 12.4 million, and billed was $347,000. So that is the primary reason for the shortfall. There's another piece here. I'm not sure. anyways, so, oh, that's wastewater. Wastewater similarly is down around the same amount, around 2.5 million for the bill being going from 360,000 to 292,000. So in both those funds. Another factor for the loss of revenue on the water side is the non-collection of the production cost adjuster charges for the first tier of water consumed. We all understand the production cost adjuster is designed to recover the cost for chemicals, electric, sludge removal, and lab supplies and testing. The cost for said operational components are reviewed monthly and then recovered in the quarterly PCA, but not all customers pay towards the PCA. By the current rate design, residential and commercial customers using 200 cubic feet or less do not pay a PCA charge. By the current rate design, industrial customers using 500 cubic feet or less do not pay a PCA charge either. So we have approximately 1,000 customers per month that fall under that exemption and do not pay the PCA towards chemicals, electric, sludge, etc. So this equates to approximately $17,000 in annual revenue not collected to recover the production costs of the water plant. This is obviously having a negative effect on the fund balance as well. So like I said, the PCA charges that are currently exempt, residential, commercial under 200 cubic feet, and for the first 200 cubic feet, and then industrial customers for the first 500 cubic feet. Additional detailed information pertaining to the PCA will be provided to the next meeting for discussion. We also talked about possibly moving from a quarterly PCA adjustment to an annual PCA adjustment, but they're going to be looking at that and bringing that to our next meeting in June, and also further discussion in July as well. All right, another financial concern for all the utilities that could be forthcoming is the language in the proposed Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solution Act, or the HEROES Act, federal level. Here is the language in the proposal. The proposal prohibits utilities, including electricity, water, wastewater, and gas, from shutoffs or terminations for all residential, small business, and nonprofit customers until 120 days after the end of the pandemic has been declared, and precludes any collection of late fees or interest during that time. The utilities, including public power systems, are subject to penalties for violating that prohibition. Also, no direct aid is provided to utilities to address the financial impacts of those increases in non-collection of accounts or load loss. That information was provided by AMP and ONEA. So obviously that, if that were to pass, that would be frankly devastating to our public utility to have that in there. On both accounts, both the not being able to shut off or terminate, and also not being able to collect late fees or interest in lieu of termination. All right. Wastewater treatment plant operators are kindly asking area residents to please stop flushing cleaning wipes down the toilet. This is increasingly a problem. They are encountering large amount of disinfectant wipes coming through the sanitary sewer system, and the wipes are causing operational issues at the treatment facility. This means even if the wipe container says they are flushable, does not mean that you should do it. So please do not do it. And of course we have a saying, because why not? No wipes in the pipes. So if we can make sure our constituents understand that, even if they are, again, flushable on the package, that doesn't matter. I don't think there's a shortage of toilet paper anymore, nor is there a run on toilet paper anymore, so please just use the authentic stuff. All right, city website, we're almost done. See everyone's eyes glazing over, as are mine. It's a little bit difficult to read this, but we're getting through this together. We're all in this together, remember that. All right, the city website is being updated. The new design will provide a much needed update to make the site more user-friendly and and one that resonates with the city's personality. A review and walkthrough of the new design was shown that it's easier to navigate around the site to quickly find the desired information, which is always good in this instance. It's easier to read and post notices, which is always good. Site design flows nicely, and it has the ever so popular "How do I" button on there as well. The design will definitely help the utilities office with online communications for paying bills, energy rebate forms, peak power alerts, vital notices such as water main breaks, power outages, road closures, tree trimming, and other community information. The utility clerks are always promoting the city webpage to city residents to use for information, and that's unfortunate when you have the current site where it's difficult to find said information. So this site will bring a welcoming feel to the user. The design was developed by Pivot Creative, Shelby business located on Main Street, and the new design is tentatively scheduled to go live by the end of May. Mayor?
So soon? Good. All right. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Martin in regard to his report? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, two points I want to raise. At what point do we take those PCA costs and actually build them into the rate? Chemicals continue to rise and things like that. These, the things that are included in that formula aren't going to come down. So I just wonder at what point we just build them into the rate structure, which then would cover the concern that some people aren't paying it. I harken back to years ago when we had the coal charges at the light plant, and we just kept building this fuel adjustment that kept going up and up. And someone said, look, the price of coal is not going to drop down to, let's say we were billing at 30, and let's say we started at 15. It's not going to go back down to 15. Let's just take this chunk of fuel and just build it into the rate, and then start with the fuel adjustment over again. So that's my question. At what point do we take the PCA and just say, look, here's the reality, these costs aren't going to go down, put them into the rate, and start over again.
Mr. Martin.
So the thought with the PCA along those certain items, it's not that the items are going to cost more, it's that the usage varies and fluctuates. So whether it's the electricity, sludge removal, chemicals, it's not necessarily the cost of it, it's that the usage fluctuates. Also, that would result in us having to, on either a quarterly or an annual basis, look at rates on a consistent basis, versus having a mechanism in place that's automatic that covers those costs, or whatever those are. So we are looking at, we do think it's a little onerous to have a quarterly, especially for businesses who have difficulty on planning around quarterly increases along the PCA lines. So we're looking at a couple different things. One is getting rid of the exclusions for the PCA, because obviously it doesn't matter if you're using 1 cubic foot or you're using 5,000 cubic feet. There is a percentage of the electricity, sludge removal, etc., that is responsible for you getting that water, etc. So we're looking at the exclusions, but then also looking at possibly pushing the PCA to an annual to make it a little more steady. And if I can piggyback on that, it just reminded me, one thing I have asked them to look at too is the possibility of having a shared, we'll call it a shared emergency fund amongst the 3 utilities, so that short-term gaps can be covered by a shared emergency fund versus having to raise rates for a short-term fix that's not necessarily a longer-term problem. So like, for example, what we're experiencing now, or if there was another energy crisis or something like along those lines, something that we know is short-term. Right now, our only recourse is to, as council, raise the rates and then hope that we can reduce them over time in the past, or in the future, versus, being able to say, okay, well, water and wastewater is having a little bit of time here, but this is a short-term thing. We can take from this the emergency fund and then not have to raise rates, being able to cover that, but being able to cover that from all the different funds instead of them having to be completely siloed. So those are things that we're looking at. But that's kind of the explanation of the PCA and why it came to be and why it probably wouldn't be prudent to wholly encapsulate those in rates.
Mr. Gates.
Mayor, my other comment is about the city website. When the current website premiered under the reign of your predecessor, I protested in committee the fact that her picture popped up on every single web page, you know, however many there are in that it was dare I say, a cult of personality. I would certainly hope, with all due respect to you, of course you inherited that, I get that, but I would certainly hope that this design of that eliminates the mayor's picture popping up on every single web page, every single place in it.
Mr. Hensman has seen the final design. For some reason, I was in another meeting or something, I did not get to see that, but yes, that is the case.
Well, thank you. Patience is its own reward.
Yeah, there you go. Very good. Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your report. Now move to reports of city officials. Report, I'll keep it brief here this evening. Councilman Gates did touch on the fact that we are at full workforce in our service department and line department beginning today. Also, utilities office window is open, soft reopen. City Hall lobby as well as utilities lobby later this week is on tap. The taxi service remains suspended for the time being. And hopefully we will have a transportation service available sometime first week of June, and that of course call for some reworking of the interior of the taxi to give protection to the driver. And there are several issues we're kind of working through on that, so it's going to take a little time. I do want to thank our citizens for keeping their lawns mowed. However, I do want to remind our citizens that it is unwise and unlawful to blow their grass clippings onto the roadway and leave them there. It causes us all kinds of problems in our stormwater system across the city. Catch basins get clogged up and so forth. As far as the COVID-19 impact within the city of Shelby, we are monitoring 3 current cases. Shelby City Health Department is monitoring 3 current cases. One of those 3 is hospitalized under general hospital care, and 12 cases have been resolved. So cumulative, we've had 15 cases, but 12 of the 15 have been resolved, which I'm happy to say. I think it's been kind of widely publicized, but there will be no organized Memorial Day parade or ceremony at the cemetery this year. We will be, if weather permits, here getting some fresh flowers in the flower boxes. The hanging baskets, I think, are on tap to be hung. The patriotic bunting put on the gazebo. So we're going to try to dress up the downtown. The flags have already been flying, but there will be no organized parade or services. So I'll just encourage our families to have their own special time of remembering our heroes, most recent and many years ago. So with that, I think that's my report. Are there any questions for me or comments? Mr. Martin.
Mayor, it's my understanding that the high school graduates are going to be doing a parade. Is that correct?
Mr. Geis, have you heard anything? It'd be a parade to be in cars, am I thinking correctly? Or-
Yes, the route that I believe I saw is they were going to leave the high school, take Smiley to Gamble, then to Maine, all the way out to Technology, and back down Mansfield Avenue, back to the high school. Somewhere along that line, yeah. I'm not positive.
Mr. Martin.
The thing I saw was encouraging people to go along the route and practice social distancing. So my question is, like, we can do that for college graduates. What's the reasoning behind us not being able to do a Memorial Day parade along the same guidelines?
I talked with Ms. Feaster, and that's sort of on their side of things with American Legion, and she was was concerned about the most vulnerable age brackets are probably the ones that are most participatory. And she just did not feel this year that she would want to put the health and well-being of those individuals at risk.
So the impetus for us not having it was not on the city's side, it was on the
Correct, I left that
organizers.
decision to the organizers.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Move on to Mr. Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you. I will also keep this rather brief, especially since Councilman Gates did such a fabulous job with the financials. As he said, I am really surprised how well we're hanging in there with revenue-wise. Time will tell. It's as withholding for the next quarter comes in, and then next year with the individual business taxes. So we'll just keep an eye on that and do the best we can. There's a couple pieces of legislation about amending appropriations, but I can discuss those when we get to those. Other than that, we've just sort of been going on the best we can. It's the so-called normal business. As the mayor said, we'll be doing a soft reopening of the lobby and start getting the tax folks getting a little busier here as we approach our new July 15th deadline. That's really all I have right now, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions, comments from Mr. Crum? Hearing none, we'll move forward. First, Mr. Ice, who is not here this evening. Project Coordinator, Mr. Geis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items. We're starting with the getting back online with a lot of our projects. You'll see some legislation at the next meeting for city projects. We had an initial meeting with the engineer for the new pre-K through 8 school building, so that was kind of exciting. Going over some issues with them on that. In my zoning hat, we got a lot of requests for fences and especially swimming pools. So just a reminder, the definition of a pool under, the city mirrored the county building department's definitions in all the same ordinances. Pool is a excavation, depression, construction, receptacle, or container designed or constructed to hold or retain water having a minimum size of 200 square feet and being over 24 inches deep at any point. The main issues with the pool, the two safety issues obviously is the ladder. Ladder has to be removed if they're not using it, so some children, and even in my neighborhood before, there was a dog that climbed up and almost drowned. So the other issue is the electrical and having the GFI receptacle, if they're using the cord or whatever and so forth. So the county building department takes care of all that, so forth. So, at any time, myself or the health commissioner, health department can monitor those pools for the different, health and more on the quality. But if we don't see the ladder removed, there are things that we can do to take care and make sure that happens. So that's for the safety of everyone. So, and also you mentioned about grass in the roadways, also in our waterways. It also is unwanted and unlawful to dump grass, limbs, and so forth, anything in the waterways. So,
Thank you for that good reminder. Thank you, Mr. Geis. Any questions or comments from Mr. Geis in regard to his report? Hearing none, we'll move forward to new business. Any new business to be brought before council this evening? Hearing none, we'll move forward to unfinished business. The future use of Main Street Fire Station remains at its current status. Exterior property maintenance at 59 West Main Street, same thing there. There's no new movement on that building at this point. Any other unfinished business? Not, we'll move forward to legislation.
Ordinance number 10-2020, enacting section 230.04, Federal Uniform Guidance Policies of Chapter 230, Mayor of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Shelby.
Move for third reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Gates for the third reading of ordinance number 10-2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Ordinance number 10, 2020 passes its third reading.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of ordinance number 10, 2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 10, 2020 passes.
Ordinance number 11-2020, amending chapter 1050 electricity, section 1050.02, rates and charges for service, generation charge of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Move the ordinance be taken up for its third reading.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the third reading of ordinance number 11, 2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 11, 2020 passes its third reading.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of ordinance number 11, 2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 11, 2020 passes.
Ordinance number 12, 2020, amending section 1482.06 of chapter 1482, swimming pools of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rob and a second by Mr. Martin for the second reading of ordinance number 12, 2020. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 12, 2020 passes the second reading.
Ordinance number 13, 2020, amending ordinances number 8, 2020, annual appropriations and declaring an emergency.
I move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
That motion to suspend passes.
The ordinance be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Gates for the passage of ordinance number 13, 2020. Discussion. Mr. Crum?
Yeah, this ordinance is actually sort of to correct my mistake. During the meeting at large for appropriations, it was suggested to add in an line item for engineering in the electric fund and the DCP fund for $15,000 to help pay for the electric portion of the streetscape project that will be this fall. And I had a clerical error and did not include that in the total appropriations for the year. So this is to correct that error. And so I asked that you guys approve that so we can move forward with that project.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 13, 2020 passes.
Ordinance number 14, 2020, amending ordinance number 8, 2020, annual appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
That the rule to suspend passes. The motion to suspend the rule passes.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of ordinance number 14, 2020. Discussion? Mr. Crum?
Yeah, this is also with a similar, with the same project. With the streetscape, as I now know, I didn't know at the time, there will be a grant that will help pay for the vast majority of the engineering costs. And so that grant was not included as a revenue or expense item in appropriations. I have been in contact with the county, and they were supposed to give me a certification today, in today's mail. It didn't make it on time, but I do have an email from them that I can forward on to all of you if you would like, stating that they are fine with that, and certifications in the mail on the revenue side. So this is an in and out. It might be a direct payment, but we do have the revenue to offset this expense.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Ordinance number 14, 2020 passes.
Resolution number 24, 2020, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement with K.E. McCartney and Associates, Inc. for engineering services and final design for the Shelby Streetscape project and declaring an emergency.
Will the ordinance be taken up and passed?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of Resolution 24, 2020. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
This is would be the start to do the design and blueprints for that project. Our portion was like 32,000 of that's 170 is in that contract. So that's what Mr. Crum was referring to. All that the money from the grants would pay directly to the contractor. So this would be our portion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Gates.
This firm did the design work for the Mansfield Avenue project, and you'll recall that that was one of the smoothest and one of the largest projects we've ever had. So I have no doubt that they'll do an equally good job on this one.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. McLaughlin.
Just a note on a couple typos. Down under the signatures, my middle initial is a D, and where it says attest, it has Lifer's name there.
You can be eagle eye to water. By unanimous consent, then we will make those changes as presented by Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any objections to that? Those changes will be made by unanimous consent. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Resolution number 24, 2020 passes. Come to miscellaneous business. Miscellaneous business report council this evening, Mr. Martin.
Mayor, starting with the next council meeting, I see no reason that we don't invite the law director to participate. There may be, of course, issues that are important for the law director to do, and we, of course, accommodate him with proper social distancing, so I see no reason to exclude the law director from future council meetings at this time.
Okay. I will be in contact with him. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'd like to briefly pay tribute to Mr. David Tarvin, who passed away last week. Mr. Tarvin was, I graduated with his son Mike. I knew Mr. Tarvin, I can't say I knew him well, but he was a fine gentleman and a fine public servant. He served here for at least 3 terms on the Board of Education here. So a fine gentleman and a fine citizen of the community. And I'm sure that we all extend our condolences to the Tarvin family.
Thank you. Very, very well said. Any further miscellaneous? Mr. Martin?
You had mentioned it, Mayor, but obviously for our next council, we'll have Memorial Day, and I just want to give my friendly reminder that Memorial Day is not Veterans Day, not Armed Forces Day. We're not thanking those who served for their service. We're thanking those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country, and that's what we're remembering that day. And it means a great deal to Gold Star families and those whose loved ones have given the ultimate sacrifice for their country all over the country. So please be mindful of that and understand that. It means a great deal for us in the military community, because many of us know of those who went with us when we went overseas and didn't come back. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about everything that they gave for everything that we have. This is just a great day to join together and give collective gratefulness and thank you to those who gave their last full measure of devotion.
Thank you for that, very well said. Any further miscellaneous? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move council adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Council adjourn, that motion passes. Council adjourns at 8:29.